The Muriel McQueen Fergusson Center for Family Violence Research acknowledges that it carries out its work on the traditional unceded territory of the Wolastoqey, Mi'kmaq, and Pescademocati peoples. This territory is covered by the Treaties of Peace and Friendship, which these nations first signed with the British Crown in 1726. The treaties did not deal with the surrender of lands and resources, but in fact recognized Mi'kmaq and Wolastoqey title and established the rules for what was to be an ongoing relationship between nations. We pay respect to the elders, past and present, and descendants of this land. We honor the knowledge keepers and seek their guidance as we strive to develop closer relationships with the Indigenous people of New Brunswick.
Welcome to In Conversation, a podcast produced and hosted by the Muriel McQueen Fergusson Center for Family Violence Research, the MMFC, at the University of New Brunswick in Fredericton, Canada. At the MMFC, we're dedicated to advancing knowledge, fostering dialogue, and creating change through community-based participatory research on family and gender-based violence. Through this podcast, we bring you insightful discussions with researchers, advocates, policymakers, and community members who are working to address the complex issues surrounding family and gender-based violence. My name is Katie Hamill. I'm a PhD student in the Faculty of Education at UNB and a student and collaborator on various projects here at the MMFC. Today, I'm here with my friend and colleague, Kathleen Allen, who's the research coordinator on the A.I.M project. A.I.M stands for Advocacy Intervention for Women Midlife and Older. And today we'll be discussing a project that we're both working on, which focuses on testing and intervention for older women who have experienced IPV in later life. So, Kathleen, can you introduce yourself to me and tell me a little bit about your role in the project?
Yeah, for sure. So I came onto the A.I.M study back in May 2023, and my role in the A.I.M study as research coordinator, really I was just being involved in executing the project on each phase of the research process. So beginning with doing ethics applications at different universities, recruiting participants, and as well as helping with forming partnerships, collecting data with participants, and analyzing data, basically all areas of the research process on the project.
So you were brought in May 2023. So at that point, was the project sort of like up and running? It was starting to go and you joined in?
Yeah, so the project started technically in January 2023. So we're funded by the Public Health Agency of Canada from January 2023 to December 2025. And at that time when I joined in, they were just kind of getting things started. So it was a great time to join in.
So did the A.I.M study project, it came from a systematic review that Dr. Laurie Weeks had done? Is that where it originated from?
Yes. So Dr. Laurie Weeks is one of the co-principal investigators of the A.I.M study, and she has done numerous works on the abuse of older women, and in particular intimate partner violence. Laurie was invited to submit a proposal to this funding opportunity that the Public Health Agency was offering, which was for preventing and addressing family violence.
Okay.
And so there's numerous projects across Canada as part of this funding opportunity, and she was invited and was accepted to do that, and hers was to focus on more elder abuse. And so from doing her scoping review with her team, she identified an intervention to address intimate partner violence that was found to have good outcomes. Specifically, it reduced depression scores, as well as perceived social support. So, and that was from a study that was actually done in China. So basically, we took that intervention, which was a 13-week program that offers information and social support. And Laurie, because of the good positive outcomes of that one, she wanted to adapt that program for women in midlife and older in the Maritime provinces in Canada. So she did some adaptations with some of her research team to that program, and that's what we implemented in this study.
Right. So basically she took a wide look at all kinds of different intervention programs to see which ones seemed to be working the best.
Yeah, exactly.
And then adapted it for older women, specifically on the East Coast.
Yeah, exactly. For the A.I.M study, we were looking to recruit women who were in midlife and older, lived in the Maritime provinces, and women who were, what we were saying, in the process of leaving an abusive relationship. So that might mean that they could have recently left within about a year or two, or they were maybe contemplating leaving or just in the process of leaving.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of in that within a year to 2 years of leaving. And they could speak English or French to participate in the study.
So for a project like this where, our scope is kind of big, it's like, what was the age cutoff? 45?
Yeah, so actually was something that was a bit of a debate at the beginning, too.
What is midlife?
What is midlife, yeah. It was, originally we were kind of thinking 50, but we had a lot of women interested in joining the study who were in their 40s, so we did move it back to like around 45.
Right.
And I think our participant range was actually like 44 to 69.
Right.
We had tried the community partnerships. That was kind of our biggest recruitment effort that we had. So like transition houses and domestic violence outreach programs, they were kind of who we were hoping to partner with.
Right.
We learned very quickly that they were pretty much at max capacity in regards to like their staffing, their financials, all of that. So as much as we wanted to work with them, it was just not feasible in some cases.
Right.
And we also like had to have a couple of options for those that did want to partner with us. So some organizations just helped with identifying potential participants and then sending them our way. And then some did that recruitment side of things, as well as training a facilitator to or a staff member to facilitate the program.
Just like dependent on capacity.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
I think, COVID was kind of put things at max capacity, and then things haven't really leveled out since in the sector.
Right.
So it was, we had some transition houses, a couple agreed to do the full partnership where they had a facilitator help us out. But we also did hire some outside of organizations. So like our facilitators have like a social work background or a counseling background, and working with vulnerable populations. So we basically hired them and trained them to facilitate to any participants that were recruited outside of our partnerships. So because we did share posters on Facebook and then in the community as well, like some bulletin boards in like churches and stuff like that. So we did do a couple of different methods to recruit. Facebook and our partnerships were about equally as effective. So I think, when an organization shared our poster on Facebook, it caught people's eyes.
And just like logistically recruitment on Facebook, that means sharing a poster as an ad, like through the MMFC or through like targeted advertisements?
We didn't actually do like paid advertisements.
Okay.
So we did use the MMFC's Facebook page to share our poster, but we kind of like shared it within Facebook groups a lot of times throughout the Maritimes. And went from
So
there.
was that like part of your role then, was literally like digging into Facebook and finding groups and whatever rural communities and PEI?
Yeah, I did do that for a while actually. So, like sometimes you see news groups from certain areas. So stuff like that. That's really what we use to share our poster in. So, there might be thousands of people in the group, and it's, it caught someone's eye. And
Totally.
Yeah.
So, like a lot of work that I see on gender-based violence and family violence, a lot of it focuses on like dating when you're younger, and focuses on a lot of younger women, and like identifying risk factors for violence, et cetera, being safe while you're dating. But there's kind of like a dearth of information about women midlife and older who are experiencing violence. And I think that's a really cool part of this project. Like, not a lot of people are focusing on that, especially in rural areas like the east coast of Canada. So Dr. Laurie Weeks, who is based out of Dalhousie and is one of our principal investigators on the project, is a gerontologist by trade, right?
Yeah, she is.
Yeah.
So her research is really focused on women in midlife and older, and that's why she wanted to focus on that for this study. And basically, just like you said, just that there's not a lot of research focus on that. So really, like, taking into account the situations that women who in this age cohort are, their generational effects of violence. Like you said earlier, it's like it's a process to leave an abusive relationship, and taking into account that they might have shared land, shared houses, like grandchildren, and the importance of I think Laurie says, like, the importance of place. Like, it's really important to take into account all of those factors. And as well, like, certain things that we did in the project, like our facilitators were all women who were sort of in that midlife age bracket, which the participants really appreciated. I think that they felt like they could connect with them. And even I think in some of our interviews, the participants will say that they couldn't really connect with, like, some of the staff at transition houses and things like that who were younger. So I think having people that, they might not have the same life circumstances, but they're of the same generation, that sort of thing. It made an impact on their experience as well.
Yeah, I often think about, with this project and others that I've done, like with others, we talk about barriers to leaving an abusive situation. And these are, financial, emotional, there's so many different barriers. But the complexity when it's women who are midlife and older, and whereas a lot of the time with these conversations of gender-based violence, we're talking about younger folks, and just generationally it might be different. Maybe they've never joined a bank account, whereas these women midlife and older, like, their lives are so deeply intertwined legally, like in ways that are really complicated and expensive to untangle yourself. Paying for a lawyer to get divorced, like, all of these things are all these different barriers, and it just gets kind of more and more complex the more entangled you are with a partner.
Yeah, and as you're speaking about barriers, it's making me think about, like, what participants have said in regards to barriers to seeking help too after leaving. And I think that's where our program really helped, is, like, oftentimes they weren't just getting support from other places, like other services, like the programs. I think our program is unique in that, like, some of the transition houses do offer, like, supportive counseling and be somewhat similar to our program, but you can only stay in a transition house for a certain amount of time and that sort of thing, so it kind of extends onto that. And I think, hopefully in the future we can be able to take our program and be able to offer it to transition houses as well, and saying, this is what we did and this is what we found, and then they could maybe implement it in their organizations too. But yeah, the barriers to leaving was another piece where it was really eye-opening, I found. And like you said, the social isolation of being in an intimate partner violence situation for a lot of years. They isolate themselves, and then from friends, family, that sort of thing, and then coming out of the relationship, it's hard to get yourself out there again.
And especially this study too is looking at people in the process of leaving, and complexities in terms of safety around that, of like, how do you get an apartment if you have to put a down payment on it and your money is attached to your partner's money? Like, how do you physically remove yourself from the situation? And one thing that has been, I guess, positive and all of the negative and some of the qualitative is there's all these, like, really beautiful little stories that are told throughout of like landlords that said, don't worry about it, the apartment's yours, pay me when you can. Like just like people along the way that helped. And the difference that made like is really like staggering.
Pivotal in their experience.
Yeah, right. Totally.
Yeah. So it was interesting because when we were doing the interviews and the qualitative interviews as well as the quantitative surveys, we weren't asking them for their story. Yeah. Really. We were just sort of had specific questions that we were asking, and then we were, offering the program to support them. But their stories really, I think you agree, like the stories really came out, and totally. It was really interesting, I guess, and eye-opening. So the study was set up as a randomized control trial, just meaning that all participants came into the study with an equal likelihood of receiving the A.I.M program or being in our comparison group. And it was just, a chance draw if they got the program or not. Right. And what the program looked like itself, as it was adapted from the Tawari study, was a 13-week program. The first session is an information sharing session. So participants are working with a facilitator, and they receive information and resources on the dynamics of abuse, diverse women who are experiencing intimate partner violence, information on like digital safety and safety planning, and other IPV related supports. So they receive kind of basically we have a booklet of information that they go over in that first information sharing session. And I should also mention the A.I.M program was completely virtual as well. So it was all done over the phone or by video call. And after that initial session, participants did social support sessions. So we had 12 weeks of sessions that were 20 to 30 minutes or so, where they received support and encouragement from their facilitator and kind of meeting the participant where they're at. So, wherever part of the process they're at, whether they're, going through divorce settlements or going through the court process or that sort of thing. So really our facilitators just tried to support the women wherever they were at. And to talk a little bit about our facilitators, we recruited people that had a background in offering supports to vulnerable populations or worked in the IPV sector to become trained to facilitate our program.
Right. I think the part about this project that's so cool too is then on top of this intervention program, which was actually being implemented, and then you and I are taking a look at like how that's all going in the end. But the part that's really cool is these community partnerships that have been built up. So can you just tell me like a little bit about why those happened in the first place and how they're so impactful in a project like this?
Yeah, so actually that came from one of our other co-principal investigators, Dr. Kathy Holtman, who's here at UNB. She suggested doing community partnerships because she has background in recruiting for projects to do with violence and vulnerable populations. So we went ahead and we tried that out. So we wanted to partner with organizations that already offered supports and services to victims of violence. So that included like reaching out to transition houses, domestic violence outreach services, women's centers, and multicultural societies. Basically, we were looking to see who we could bring onto the study that would be able to help A, recruit participants, and then B, help facilitate the program.
Right. So it was like staff from those places that then became A, facilitators, and B, also helped with the recruitment process?
Yeah, exactly. So originally we reached out to executive directors to kind of like ask them if they were interested in partnering with us. And we kind of laid out what we were looking for as a partnership and what we would offer for financial compensation. And then if they agreed or even just were interested, we would have a virtual meeting and kind of talk about the study and try and, gauge their interest. And then if it really was up to them, if they had a staff member in mind who had the capacity to take on that role of facilitator or help out with recruitment only. So, yeah.
And then facilitators while they were recruiting, was it primarily women that they had an existing relationship with through either the transition house or domestic violence outreach, or was it primarily like new people that they didn't have a relationship with, or both?
I think both.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in some cases, it may have been that they had already had a relationship. They may have already have done counseling, or they may have, met them in a transition house or something like that. And then in some cases, I think they might have recruited people that they hadn't really had much of a relationship with.
Right.
So I think both sides of it.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Basically, if they had to be screened for eligibility, and so that kind of looked like sometimes our facilitators would refer people to us, and then we would reach out to them and do the screening, and then if they were eligible, then they would move on to the intake, where they would go over the information about the study so that they understand what a randomized controlled trial looks like you said, just meaning that they have a 50% chance of being assigned to the program, or a 50% chance of being in our comparison group. And for those participants in the comparison group, they didn't receive the program. They did receive like a booklet of information with the same information that was given during the first session of the program, but they didn't have any follow-up with any facilitators. So it was basically, we gave them the information, and then they did with it as they pleased. And then we followed up with all participants. So those comparison group participants, we followed up with them 3 months later, and then again 9 months later. And same with the A.I.M program. When they completed the program, we followed up with them 3 months later and 9 months later, and did some surveys with them, which thank you, Katie, for helping out with that.
No problem.
And those surveys that we do with them to follow up are to help us. We'll be able to determine if there's, changes in the measures and scores, positive or negative on health outcomes, use of IPV, safety strategies and behaviors, and perceived social support as well. So hopefully we'll see some positive trends in that. We're still in the process of doing our follow-ups. We can't speak on the results yet, but coming soon.
Yeah. So they looked at basically how people were doing in terms of health, in terms of like social isolation, in terms of all kinds of things at the very beginning, and then following the intervention program to see kind of how they're doing, and then 9 months later.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So for this study, it's a mixed method, so we're doing both quantitative and qualitative. So our surveys are a quantitative piece, and then you've also been doing interviews with participants and with facilitators too? Yeah. So these interviews have been really interesting, and basically we were asking the participants to tell us about their experiences in the A.I.M program, and to get their feedback, see what they liked, didn't like, if there's any areas for improvement to the A.I.M program. But I'll say overall, from those interviews with the participants who did the full A.I.M program, they were overwhelmingly positive. They had really great things to say about the support and information that they received from their facilitators and from the program. So it was very promising. We will be publishing the results of those interviews as well. They also provided us feedback for how we can improve the program, which I think the main recommendation is that we follow the program facilitators to follow up with the participants after they finish their 13-week program. So as of right now, the way it's set up, it's just that they do their program and then we follow up with surveys. So but they really would like to hear from the facilitators again. Yeah.
And then we interviewed the facilitators as well to get the other side of it, to understand their experiences facilitating the program, and what they thought about it, and if they had recommendations as well, which was really interesting too. We have a smaller sample size for that, but that's okay.
How many participants have there been at this point?
Yeah, we had 53 women enroll in the study, and as you can imagine, there's a lot of pieces to this study. So there's always going to be a certain amount of dropouts when you do research. So we have had a pretty good retention rate. Like we're up to, I think almost 40 participants have completed their 3-month follow-up. And for the participants that were in the A.I.M program, we had, I think, 27 out of 33 finished the program, so pretty good completion rate.
Yeah, I guess, like, I'm wondering, I have in my head, which I'll say after you say.
Okay.
But just, like, what is it that has stuck out to you the most in all of those kind of conversations?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and there's a lot. I think if I'm thinking broadly of, like, what I'm taking home from this is, like, the participants really appreciated the program, but I think there's a lot more that can be done to help women in these situations.
Yeah.
You know, they have very diverse needs, and oftentimes when they are going through a situation of intimate partner violence, like, they might receive supports, like formal supports, from whether it's from police or victim services, or a transition house or a program. Oftentimes those services come in right as the situation might happen,
right?
But then it tapers off, and then they're kind of left to figure out finding support or healing from their trauma or their relationship, and or starting their life over again, that sort of thing. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is that, you know, there's our program helped them, but I think they do need more.
Yeah.
And I think that's where that piece of, like, following up with them over time is really important.
Yeah.
I mean, for our project, we have a timeline, right? We probably could have recruited more participants if we had more time, but we had to make time for the 9-month follow-ups and stuff like that.
Right.
So I think having that timeline, you know, made it so we can only do so much. But I think if we extend our program and take into account what they told us they need, we can make it even stronger and support them even further.
Yeah. A lot of the women that we've spoken to, you know, they've moved provinces and moved communities and moved to a place where they know, like, absolutely no one.
Yeah.
And they're really starting their lives over again. And they, you know, are maybe in their 60s and are trying to sort of navigate all these things that, you know, they've never done before. And it's just, like, really lonely. And I think that's what a lot of folks got from the facilitator, is just, like, somebody who cares and believes their story goes so far. Just, like, having the opportunity to express what happened to you and have someone say, like, I believe you, let's figure it out, is, like, life-changing for folks.
Yeah, and sort of, like, the facilitators validating their experiences, too. Like, some of these women have been, like you said, so isolated, and they didn't talk about it to their friends or their family. Yeah. So they really liked having that relationship with the facilitators, where it was, like, almost like a friendship, but not a friendship, and also sort of a professional, but not like their therapist. Right. So it was kind of a really in-between support person, essentially. And they really appreciated that. And, like, when they really connected with their facilitator, it was hard for them to let go. Like, I don't know if you've heard this from participants at the 3-month follow-up. They're like, I miss talking to their facilitator, basically. Yeah.
So we're at the point now where we're starting to go through data. We're starting to think about, like, what happens at the end of this. You know, even this morning we were talking about, like, okay, where do we go now? So where do we go now?
Yeah, well, I didn't mention this earlier, but we have a large team of researchers working on this project. So we've got researchers throughout the Maritime provinces. So we've got researchers from Dalhousie University in Halifax, St. Francis Xavier University, University of Prince Edward Island, and then, of course, UNB and University de Moncton. So we've got a really good team, and we're really hoping that we can continue, that we can get some more funding for after this year's over with the Public Health Agency funding, to get more funding to expand the scope of the A.I.M program, and maybe do some research with certain subgroups of midlife and older women. This year, basically, is a lot of our focus is on knowledge dissemination, like going to the conferences and attending the community of practice as well, which is basically, just to give a little background on that, at the University of Western Ontario, they're holding a community of practice for all of the projects that are funded by the Public Health Agency of Canada. So they do an in-person get-together each year. So my first time going was actually just after joining the study in June 2023. And they had a lot of the session was on trauma and violence informed approach, and so that's where I really learned about doing that, and that was really helpful kind of right when I first joined the study to get that lens and then use that. And we've talked about that a lot of like being really flexible with participants and just taking into account, like, you know, when we're collecting data, we have like 6 surveys that we do over the phone, and it takes a good hour a lot of times, and like,
they're intense.
Very intense. And like I find it hard as the researcher sometimes asking those questions, and if they're, you know, they can evoke a lot of emotions and memories, and it's not easy. So I think just being mindful of that.
Yeah, it's just something I think about a lot, of like, what is like the weight of being a researcher, and what does that power dynamic and relationship mean, and if I also in those moments can be someone that a person who's been through gender-based and family violence can share their story with, and just be another person that they can add to the list that said, like, I believe you, then like I'm so happy to be that person. Like, I will do that, no problem. Which I think is an important part of our job too, is like, and we've had a lot of conversations with people that have been really hard, and I've like literally said to people, I believe your story, like, you don't have to defend yourself to me, like, I don't, like, I get it, don't worry. And I think that like those little moments go a long way in people's overall well-being.
I can't, like, everything you said, like, it's perfect. It's, you know, I even think I said this morning at our meeting, like, I just have been more aware of my privilege and that sort of thing just from doing this research. And I don't know how many times I like was on having conversations on the phone with participants and said, like, you know, thank you for feeling comfortable sharing this with me, and like other times, like, I don't know how many times I said, like, I don't have any words for you know, for like you know, just I guess validating their experiences and offering support, even though that's not necessarily what our role is as researchers, but it's very important, I think, for this work.
Totally. And I think, like, even though we're in a stage now where we don't have like the hard data of the intervention program, from doing intake surveys to then either reading the transcripts from the qualitative or doing surveys later on, just even like hearing the change in someone's voice and just like being able to tell that they are kind of coming out of this isolation and are starting to just generally feel better. And some of the other things are then, you know, they're able to move forward in other ways as well. But I think it's showing that the intervention program really is working really well, and has been like overall very positive. And I have walked away from like some of the later survey intakes and stuff being like, that was great. Like, that person had a really great experience, and they seem like they're on a different path now.
Yeah, definitely. Like, even though they're still enduring, like, they're still dealing with some of the post-separation agreements and things like that. It is really like heartwarming to hear that they're in a better place and that they're moving forward with their lives. And and I think back to some of the interviews, and the participants are like they are so thankful for the connection that they had with that facilitator as well, which is really, really important and really telling for the program as well. I mean, we were really lucky and got amazing people come forward to be facilitators for the program.
So now we're in the point of data analysis. So we will do that, you and me. That'll be great. And then over the course of the next little while, the next year or so, there's lots of things to look out for in terms of where this project will go. If anyone wants to learn more about this project or other ones at the MMFC, you can check out the website, which is on the screen. If you want to talk to Kathleen and have more specific questions about this project, you can send an email, also on the screen, and follow the MMFC on social media too.